Just would like to point out before we start
the post-its on my legs.
The crib notes.
Hello, and welcome back to Mental Health Mondays, where we talk about advocacy, resources, and ending the stigmatization associated with mental health issues. Now, today's topic is PTSD, and some of the points of conversation within this video may be a tad bit heavy, maybe a tad bit triggering. So buckle in, take care of yourselves, and avoid those topics if necessary. And I got a smiley on my face. The smiley is here to make heavy conversations a little bit less heavy. So if you're feeling a little bit, activated by anything that we talk about, focus on the smiley. Okay, so getting into the thick of it. Sorry, TikTok thing. So PTSD is an illness that comes after experiencing a traumatic event. This can be anything like witnessing or being a part of a car crash, or something a lot more extreme. Any extreme traumatic event where you feel extremely unsafe can trigger PTSD. 70% of the US population will experience at least one traumatic event in their lifetime, and 1 in 13 people in the United States will experience PTSD. We now know that PTSD isn't reserved just for veterans. It is also for people who experience an extreme traumatic event and afterwards feel physically, somatically, emotionally, and mentally impacted by that traumatic event. Now, here's where I would normally go over symptoms of PTSD. However, to mitigate self-diagnosis, which is something that we don't want to do, we want to make sure that you talk to your mental health care professional to see if maybe a traumatic event impacted you physically, mentally, emotionally, or just in your daily life. And we want to make sure that you check in with yourself and your healthcare professional to make sure that you advocate for yourself and see if that diagnosis is a fit for you. A common misconception with PTSD is that people who experience a traumatic event can just get over it right after, right? But no, that's not always the case, especially with people who, from that traumatic event, develop PTSD. Sometimes it takes a really, really long time for individuals to get past that traumatic event that they experience. So some ways that you can treat that traumatic event is obviously through therapy, which I love to promote here on Mental Health Mondays because I think therapy is such an important part to the recovery process. Now, it is very important that you get a therapist who is trauma-informed or PTSD-informed so they know how to handle your specific occurrence. So if you feel like you have PTSD, make sure that that's a specific thing that you go and you look for in therapy. Now, there are a few different types of therapy specifically used for PTSD, one of which being prolonged exposure. This is where you sit with your therapist and you talk out the traumatic experience and you guys work together on exposing yourself to things and triggers that may be really, really hard for you to work out in daily life. Then another form of therapy that people who experience PTSD could benefit from is cognitive processing. This is just another fun term for reframing. So taking all of the negative emotions that you feel from that specific experience and reframing them and looking at them in a different light and reprocessing. Another form of therapy that you can utilize is Emdr, which is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. This is where you utilize bilateral stimulation, so working both sides of your brain, to cognitively reprocess the traumatic event in a way that is less intense. You feel it less in your body, you feel it less, everywhere at once, and you're able to experience it way differently. One thing about PTSD that a lot of people don't understand is the impact it has on almost every aspect of your life. Triggers are really real and they're really important to pay attention to. Somebody could go into a grocery store and see someone that reminds them of their abuser. Re-experiencing that trauma is a huge part of PTSD that a lot of people experience. So it's not just feeling uncomfortable, it's literally re-experiencing the trauma over and over and over again, which is why therapy is so extremely important and why PTSD is something that you can't just get over. PTSD is something that you can work through. But for those of you who don't experience PTSD and don't know what it's like, it's not something that someone who experiences PTSD can just get over. Recovery is a process. Recovery is not linear. It takes time. Sometimes it's up and down and up and down and up and down. It is a process that takes a lot of up and downs, a lot of back and forth, and a lot of work because it is a journey. And if you don't feel like you're making progress just yet, you will soon, I promise. keep working on yourself, keep going to therapy, keep doing what you can do to help your mental health, and come back next time when we talk about CPTSD, which is technically a subset of PTSD, but we will get into that more next week. And then after that, we will do PTSD versus CPTSD, so you can know the difference between post-traumatic stress disorder and complex post-traumatic stress disorder. See you next Monday. How was that? Was that okay?
That was Oscar worthy.
Really?
Yeah.
Hey!